Welcome to Candid Conversation, a monthly discussion of agricultural and rural issues coming to you from the Kentucky Farm Bureau studios. I'm Tim Thornberry, editor of the Kentucky Farm Bureau News, and our guest today is Kentucky Agriculture Commissioner Ryan Quarles. Commissioner, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Happy New Year, and glad to see you're doing okay.
Not too bad for a middle-aged, overweight, as my doctor said. Brand new grandpa. Thought I'd throw that in there.
Oh, hey, congratulations on that.
Doing well. Thanks for asking. And before we get started, congratulations on winning your election and starting your second term as Ag Commissioner. In looking back over the first term, talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you see as successes.
Well, I was just very proud to have the opportunity to serve a second term, and I know that Kentucky farm families came out and they voted, which is always a refreshing thing. And so I'm just really blessed and humbled to have the opportunity to continue to serve Kentucky agriculture. In the first term, I think that some things that we accomplished were significant. We were able to get Kentucky Proud beef in the Kroger. We've already sold $1 million worth of 100% Kentucky Proud beef, working with Kentucky Cattlemen's and Ag Development Board. We also had a really robust discussion about international trade, and that's an issue that means more now than ever. And we're going to be very active on that in a second term. And of course, we were an advocate for farmers in Frankfort and Washington, D.C. That's something that we have to continue to do. And finally, really thanks to Kentucky Farm Bureau, we were able to make a big impact on hunger in Kentucky with the Kentucky Hunger Initiative. And Kentucky Farm Bureau raised over $115,000 in just one afternoon for this effort. And that is money that goes directly towards addressing an issue that faces far too many Kentuckians. And so we're going to be active on that in the second term as well. But I'm just honored to have the opportunity to take the oath recently and continue to serve.
Speaking of your second term, probably my next question is, what do you see ahead? I know that trade issues are prominent on the farm, ag labor, broadband, the basket is full, as they say. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to in addition to what you said for the second term?
Well, it's 2020, and so our 2020 vision is to focus on international trade. We have a full-time staffer focused on that, and we're going to be really active working with USDA this year. We're trying to find opportunities for our farmers. Secondly, ag technology. We're so fortunate to have a state where we have embracing technology at the farm level with the Farm Machinery Show, robust research institutions, a great extension service. And so we're going to have a conversation about, hey, why not create an environment in Kentucky where entrepreneurs can come here and maybe be the Silicon Holler for ag technology. We're also going to have a discussion about the quality of life in rural Kentucky. Unfortunately, we have issues with access to healthcare, access to high-speed internet, also having entertainment venues. If we want to get young people back to rural areas of not just Kentucky but America, these are conversations we need to have that may not be directly associated with agriculture, but I would like to say the Department of Ag that we're somewhat of a de facto voice for rural Kentucky. I know that these are priorities the Farm Bureau has as well. And then I'd say another priority for us is that I want to know definitively, whether it's a yes or no, whether or not Kentucky can support a large-scale meat processing plant. And just imagine the day where Kentucky Proud beef isn't shipped, our cattle aren't shipped to the Midwest, but we actually process them right here, kind of like what we've done with the Kroger deal, the Kentucky Cattlemen's, and how that would transform Kentucky's economy if we're able to market our own beef and other protein sources right here in the state.
If you don't dream big, you can never reach those pinnacles, so to speak. But as you travel across the state, and I know you travel extensively, what are you hearing down on the farm, the small family farm, which comprises most of the farms that we have in Kentucky? What are those folks telling you when you meet with them?
Well, last year I traveled to all 120 counties. Kentuckians love their elections and love their counties. We have a lot of them. But I got to drive about 60,000 miles, put the tailgate down on a lot of farm trucks and just listen. And some of the things I'm hearing are obviously issues with farm income, especially during a period of depressed commodity prices. We're also hearing uncertainty about trade, although I think Most farmers know that we're making progress on trade. You don't exactly see it in the newspaper every day, but we are opening up markets across the world. I'm also hearing a conversation that we know that has been percolating for some time now, and that's about who's going to fill these boots on the farm? Who's going to be the next generation to take over a family farming operation? And what we're seeing is that oftentimes a farmer may not know who their successor is going to be. You know, a lot of family farms, we know whether or not there's a son or daughter that may be interested in taking over. But increasingly, we're starting to see more farmers who have a great operation, but that they don't know who's going to take over after they decide to hang up their hat. And that's a conversation we need to have across our state about planning towards the future. And with the average age of a farmer in Kentucky over 60 years old, it's a conversation I think is really good timing right now to have. And that involves not just a conversation with your family, but also with an estate planning attorney. I know Farm Bureau offers a service where you can get an estate plan done, and that just provides certainty towards the future. But those are the things I'm hearing out there.
You know, you talk a lot about the next generation. Young farmers, obviously, to Farm Bureau are a big deal, and I know to you as well. But there is some challenges. There are challenges, rather, out there that these young folks are having to face, whether they've grown up on a farm or whether they want to come to the farm for the first time. So I'm sure you've talked to a lot of those young folks. What are some of the challenges and opportunities as well for those people?
Well, Tim, I know that you're part of the Young Farmer Organization. I think you have an honorary membership in that group. But I think that when it comes to young farmers, there's not a lack of enthusiasm. There are plenty of folks that want to get out there, get their hands dirty, and create their own version of their farming operation. But there are unique challenges. Like, number one, it's such a capital-intensive occupation to be in that unless you know someone or might be related to someone that has some land for rent or perhaps for sale, it's tough. It's tough to make that first down payment on a new or beginning farm. But one of the cool things we have is Kentucky Ag Finance Corporation. We have almost $90 million in revolving loans, half of those dedicated to young farmers at a very low interest rate. And that's a board that I actually chair. So we're going to continue to make those strategic investments for our young farmers. Another interesting thing we're starting to see is that the young folks are kind of doing things a little bit differently. I think there was a real interest in adding value. If you look at some of our folks in the dairy industry, which have been hit hard these last couple of years, I've seen some dairy operations starting to sell bottled milk, churned butter, homemade ice cream. And oftentimes that's an idea of someone who just came back from college or someone in the family. And that's really cool. Then lastly, I think one of the things you see with young farmers across the state is that they don't mind doing marketing in a way that is very impactful, whether it's Facebook, social media, getting involved in a roadside market or farmer's market. And that's something that I think you're seeing a lot of enthusiasm with. And there's a young lady I graduated high school with right now that is marketing food in Lexington and Georgetown. And she's just knocking it out of the park. And her father will tell you that's something I would have never thought of.
You know, I am young enough to remember vividly the day that Kentucky Proud got started. And, in those days, I was a newspaper reporter and talked to a lot of people that really had not been to the farm, but they saw an opportunity for them to create a product that they could get out, otherwise they would not have been able to do. And so do you think that's been an enticement for not only those folks, but especially this younger generation to have that kind of program available to them?
Oh, absolutely. Kentucky Proud is our state's most successful marketing program, period. And we're so happy that it's the agriculture community that has promoted Kentucky Proud into what it is today. And when a consumer, whether someone from Louisville or someone from rural Kentucky, when they see that powerful Kentucky Proud symbol, they know they're supporting a local farmer or agribusiness. And that program continues to grow. We have over 8,000 members, and it's a program that we dedicate to agriculture. It's funded through our Ag Development Board and tobacco settlement money. But let me tell you the impact of Kentucky Proud when it comes to identifying and branding our state. It is identified by 80%. 80% of Kentuckians know what that logo means, and that's, you can't buy that type of influence. And as we're starting to see projects where we're getting into our grocery stores or getting into our athletic stadiums, we're starting to see Kentucky Proud to be something that is part of everyday consumer choices. And of course, with Kentucky Farm Bureau, the partnership we have with UK and Kentucky Proud, we now have a baseball stadium in Lexington dedicated to Kentucky agriculture with Kentucky Proud Park.
I'm seeing commercials on television that aren't related to farming whatsoever, but they're beginning to use that catchphrase, Kentucky Proud. That's got to make you feel pretty good about the efforts that have been made over the years and where we stand right now with that program.
Well, they say imitation is the best form of flattery. And we'll take that in agriculture. Anytime we have the opportunity to tell our story, particularly with someone who maybe a few generations removed from the family farm, that is a win-win for us. And if that means serving up holiday food, or as we roll into March Madness when it comes to promoting Kentucky Proud, that's something we take very seriously at the KDA, but it's something we have a lot of fun with as well.
We've discussed early in the conversation some challenges that farmers and families are facing. But with those come opportunities. Talk to me a little bit about the opportunities you see ahead for our farm families.
Well, as we start a new decade, it's important to realize, take a step back and realize where we're at. We have the safest, most abundant food supply system in the world, but we also have a consumer that is changing their preferences. Most consumers go to the grocery store and make their buying habits based off price. That is starting to change in a really big way. So I think there's an opportunity for us to not only brand Kentucky food within our state, but also attach on some of those signature agricultural products that Kentucky's known for. And this is beyond bourbon. This is beyond Kentucky Fried Chicken. We're talking about country hams. We're talking about food that may have a story behind it. We are a state that's rich in cultural aspects. But I also think in the 2020 decade, we have the opportunity to really take Kentucky to the international market. And look, we need international trade, but more importantly, the rest of the world needs Kentucky agriculture because we're already known for such high quality ag products, but we can do a better job of promoting ourselves abroad because 95% of the consumers in the world don't live in the United States. So we need to be very active and strategic about that.
From a crop perspective, we know that Kentucky has been on the forefront of a lot of things, no-till production, conservation measures that really put them at the forefront nationally as far as the things that we're doing, the programs we've implemented. Talk to me a little bit about that. Commodity prices are low, but we're seeing opportunities out there in other markets with other crops. And I know you know a little bit about those new crops that are coming along. If you'd talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if you were to ask me what the biggest issue in agriculture is today, it's depressed commodity prices. And so one thing we've seen our producers do is to try to save on the front side with input costs. And that's really the hidden gem in Kentucky agriculture is that we have strategic assets such as a history of coming out with innovation, no-till corn, an Ebola-fighting vaccine made out of tobacco plant. We have great livestock husbandry practices here and genetics programs that rival the rest of the world. But when you have big investments such as the UK Grain and Forage Center for Excellence, which Farm Bureau, the Kentucky Department of Ag helped sponsor, these are long-term assets that are going to make sure that we help make sure that Kentucky farmers are lean and mean, productive, and hopefully add to the bottom line profitability. But we're also looking at some other crops. Obviously, industrial hemp gets a lot of headlines. There's a lot of glitches in the system right now, but we have lots of farmers making money. We have lots of farmers who are covering their inputs, and we have some folks who found out maybe this isn't for them. And so we're trying to be very realistic about the future of hemp, but I think there's a long-term market, and we're starting to see some of our young producers really look at this as a way to be a rotational crop on their farm. We're also looking at some other crops that may have potential here, ranging from hops, which connect with our local craft beer industry. We also have people growing canaf, which is a fibrous plant. And there's some other crops right now that are being looked at for pharmaceutical purposes that are currently under FDA clinical trials right now. And if these crops do end up being a medicine for people, we could see an opportunity for Kentucky farmers to help grow medicine here in Kentucky as well.
I wonder, I think I know the answer to this question, but in looking at all the programs that Kentucky has instituted over the years, and especially looking at the investment that the state has made through our Ag Development Fund, it's easy to think that Kentucky really could become the epicenter of the agricultural world in this country and beyond, because of our location, because of the programs we have, because of the initiative we have, and the great farm families we have. Is that a goal you think about
Oh,
often?
absolutely. I think the best thing we can do as a state is just tell our story. Kind of like what you all do here with Candid Conversations. Like, that you tell a story about what Kentucky is. And we have a lot of things going for us. We have a distribution strategic advantage that other states don't have. We have a lot of variety and diversity in agriculture. We grow everything from apples to zucchinis and everything in between. But we also have a on-farm motivation. A lot of folks that may have grown tobacco growing up are used to trying out new crops, and that's something I think is really strategic for us. But I think as we move forward, we need to remind folks that Daniel Boone once said that heaven must be a Kentucky type of place. And if you ever have the opportunity to have a home-cooked meal in Kentucky, I would agree with that. And we just need to tell our story.
You know, we often talk about and use the phrase that more and more people are becoming further removed from the farm. That's not the case with Ryan Quarles. You grew up on a farm, and a farm that has a rich family history. I'm sure that you find a lot of folks in other states at positions such as yours that may not be the case. How big of an advantage has that been for you, do you think?
Well, look, my first school I ever attended was the Quarles Family Farm School, where I had the opportunity to start working at a very young age for $1 an hour, which, hey, I'm happy I was paid at all. And I reminded my dad recently that he gave me plenty of opportunities for character building on the farm. And that's just part of our family story, and it's our heritage. And to be honest with you, I think if you want to be an effective commissioner of agriculture, you have to have some dirt on your boots and have that on-farm upbringing, I think, that really lets you know what it means to invest your livelihood into the common clay of Kentucky, say a prayer, hope for good weather, and hope that the market's strong at the end of the year. I have the opportunity to work with other ag commissioners, directors, and secretaries, and I'm currently president of SASDA, which is all the Southern Ag Commissioners. All of us have ag backgrounds, but you're right. There are some other states that have some counterparts that may not have had the opportunity to grow up on a farm, and so for us, sometimes we have to educate our counterparts as well.
You know, does that ever surprise you, though, that you come across people that are in this arena, in this industry, that maybe don't have a lot of background in it? And obviously, I'm sure you're very quick to lend some information, teach a little bit. Does that surprise you?
Well, I always offer folks that may not have had the chance to grow up on a farm the chance to come work for us for a day. We won't even charge you. The experience is free. And if you'd like to come strip tobacco with us and have those nostalgic memories, just let us know. We'll hook you up on a field trip. But yeah, you're good.
I remember years of it.
Well, let me put it this way. Agriculture is becoming increasingly misunderstood. And a lot of times you see on national media outlets, we saw it recently on some journalistic programs that may tell only one side of the story of agriculture, but when you tell the story of our farmers, we're the most conservation-oriented people you ever meet. We want our livestock to be treated humanely because they end up being a better herd. And we just need to tell the story that we're doing things correctly. And unfortunately, we live in a world of social media where facts can be twisted or outright lies can be made about an industry. And so the more we can do as the number of farmers in the United States continue to decrease, when you have less than 2% of the population feeding the rest of the nation, and let's be frank, the rest of the world when we're exporting Kentucky and American agriculture, it's so important to make sure that we educate people the difference between a soybean and green bean, and that doesn't occur overnight. It takes some time to do.
And speaking about education, I know you're a product of student organizations, in particular FFA, as a high school student. How important to you is that educational piece at that level and even earlier to get our students at least a basic knowledge of the farm and where their food comes from.
I would not be where I'm at today if not for Kentucky 4-H and Kentucky FFA. And that's one reason why I'm so proud to raise millions of dollars for them in my first term with the Kentucky Ag Tag program due to the generosity of Kentucky farmers. It was in 4-H where I gave my first speech. It's where I learned record keeping, and it was in FFA where I learned about the rules of parliamentary procedure, which I needed to know as a legislator. And in Kentucky Farm Bureau, the Outstanding Youth Program, I had the opportunity to compete in that and win it back when I was in high school. And one of my first trips to Washington, D.C. was with Kentucky Farm Bureau. We have to make sure we have those opportunities for all Kentuckians. And that's why it's so important, whether it be the Kentucky State Fair or Ag in the Classroom or our Ag program at the KDA, to continue to bring agriculture into the classroom. And who knows, you might inspire a young Kentuckian to choose farming or agriculture as a career. Maybe the next Elon Musk or the next Thomas Edison of agriculture might be right here in Kentucky. And hey, may not have even grown up on a Kentucky farm. But at the end of the day, we have to educate young people about where their food comes from.
Commissioner, as we wrap this conversation up, and first, again, I want to say thank you for being here. Whenever I talk to you, I can't help but feel optimistic about our future in agriculture. If you would, let's close with that. What's the future look like from your standpoint?
The future is bright. We are entering an age of disruptive technologies that may change agriculture, whether we like it or not. But I know that Kentucky farmers are early adopters. We're used to changes. And that I think in the long term, if we work together as an agriculture community, we can make sure that Kentucky continues to be a leader, not just on production, but also in developing leadership as well. And speaking of giving me hope, you give me hope about what my hair may look like one day. And so I want to thank you for what you do, Kentucky Farm Bureau.
You know, this isn't real. I'm just kidding. Our guest today has been Kentucky Agriculture Commissioner Ryan Quarles. Commissioner, again, thank you so much. If you like what you've seen here at Candid Conversation, log on to our many social media sites and see past episodes and all the information that we have out there for you from Kentucky Farm Bureau.